Okay, thankfully we only have one, but it just happens to be one of the more anticipated movies of the last. It was going to be just the last year, but it's now the last 2 years.
It's legitimately the beginning of our summer season as people that work at movie theaters.
Yeah,
it really
is. This is the time Captain America came out last year.
Yep.
And now we're starting off with something that was supposed to come out. It was supposed to be like one right after the other, kind of like The Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions did.
Yeah.
But obviously, things had to be rearranged a little bit, which we will go into. For starters, the first thing I'd like to talk about with this movie is I am really sorry to the people that are normal.
You might want to clarify what you mean by that.
Let me start this off immediately. The whole thing about I don't watch trailers now. That whole thing stemmed. I have not watched trailers for 2 straight years.
Yeah.
And the whole reason for that is because I thought Fast and Furious 6's trailers really, really dampened the awesomeness of the movie. Because those trailers showed everything. Every single awesome thing about that movie was in its trailers. And when I reviewed Fast and Furious 6, if you remember, pretty much that whole review is me saying, that would have been awesome if it wasn't in the trailer. So, me viewing Furious 7 the way I did is like 2 years in the making.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because I was little tiny advertisements on IMDb and trailers that come up as like YouTube ads and the trailers in the theater, everything. This movie was trying to get me from every direction and I kept avoiding it. And so finally, I got to see what all of that stuff was that everybody wanted, in the marketing department wanted me to see ahead of time. Only within its context. And it's awesome. For starters, as far as the story's concerned, it's a little, given that these movies are really, really escalating in scale, you can it's pretty easy to guess that with a 2-hour and 20-minute runtime, it wasn't going to stick just to the vengeance subplot that the 6th one set up. And I was thrown off immediately. I guess it's a common known thing now. IMDb recently updated their synopsis of it. I was under the impression, as I'm sure pretty much everybody was, that Owen Shaw died when he flew out of the plane at the end of Fast and Furious 6. And that's why his brother, played by Jason Statham, is coming after them. That's the way they built it up.
Yeah, the trailer says that, 100% black and white.
However, the very first scene of the movie is Statham in the hospital, and he's talking to Luke. Luke Evans is actually here. He showed up to not have any lines and lay in bed with his eyes closed.
How much money did he make for those scenes is my question.
Probably more than he made for Dracula Untold altogether.
Guaranteed.
So, Owen Shaw is alive, only he's really, really fucked up and he's in a coma. So now instead of... I assumed this was going to be him going around saying, you killed my brother and now I'm offing you. But he's actually saying... He actually says in the movie, I'm coming after you because you crippled my brother. Not that this is a criticism or anything, but it's not quite as... they're really, really building up the vengeance part of it. The tagline is "Vengeance hits home." I think it would have been a little more powerful if Owen Shaw was actually dead, and I'm really not sure. Given all the directions the movie goes, I'm really not quite sure what the point is of keeping him alive. If he had just... Because that's the thing, was when I saw the end of the 6th one, and he flew out the back of the plane, I was just thinking, wow, that's kind of a lame death. Like, it's certainly no Gary Oldman in Air Force One, with the neck snapping at least. He just kind of flew into the abyss and we never saw him again. And I was like, well, that was abrupt. So I guess that explains that the reason his death in Fast and Furious 6 was such a lame death is because he didn't die at all.
Now it makes more sense than it did.
Okay. But I got used to that relatively quickly, so that's fine. And of course, they have to bring in the... Obviously, this is where Tokyo Drift and the rest of the series all come together. And they actually do have a build-up where they actually use... They still use, the actual clips from Tokyo Drift. Like when Bow Wow comes up to him and says, you know, hey man, this guy says he knew Han, and we see that it's Dom in the car at the end of Tokyo Drift. That actually, we're putting things in chronological order now. Like we actually go back and watch him kill Han again, and then we go see Dom track down Lucas Black, and it's all within this plot. Because when that scene happened with Statham during the end credits of the 6th one, I think everybody's assumption was it was just going to go from there.
So that's fixing the continuity error since everything was basically shut out of
Yeah,
order.
they pretty much everything has been covered now. There's still no sign of Leon from the first one. I still always wonder what happened to him. Because they even brought back Vince in the 5th one and then killed him.
Yeah.
I always wonder where Leon went. He's the only one that's still just out there somewhere. So, but, you know, maybe he'll turn up at some point. One thing, obviously, that I was really, really enthusiastic about going into this was the fact that, I gotta talk about the fact that James Wan had this movie. Because, as you know, I'm a huge fan of him. Even if his movies suck, they don't. Most of them don't. A couple of them do.
Yeah.
He handles them really, really well. Now, and you can tell, like, I figured they were upping this because the whole thing was, as shocking as this was to me, after he made, like, obviously he made Saw, and then he really took off, and then one of his last movies in the horror genre was The Conjuring, which was, like, a horror masterpiece.
Yes.
It was really weird to me when I guess he went on record to say, horror's not even my passion. Saw, he didn't really say it this way, but more or less Saw got him stuck in that genre. And his real passion was to make action movies. And this was basically, Death Sentence is kind of in a way towards the end, but this is like his first full-on big action movie. And seeing how well he handled horror when that wasn't even his passion, really built this up, and it does really pay off when you bring that in mind. Even though it does have, you know, it still keeps all the stuff. There's a lot of focus on like women's asses and stuff like that. All that's still in there, but that kind of comes with the territory of the franchise, of course. And the race scenes and the fight scenes don't really, on the surface, I'm sure if you really dissect them, I'm sure you could point out some techniques that he did or whatever, but on the surface, on a first viewing, those kind of look the same, but there's still those touches. Like, one that really stands out is, it's not overused, thankfully, but it happens a few times where, somebody is, we'll use the example of the scene where, Dwayne Johnson throws Statham through a glass table. Like, he picks him up over his shoulder and then throws him through it. And when that shot happens, the camera rotates with Statham and goes in like a...
It looks like the rock bottom in the trailer. I don't know if it is, per se, but it's what it looked like.
And that's right. But that does bring me to something here, and this isn't a spoiler because it's the beginning of the movie. I was really excited about the fact that this kind of brings everything to a head, everything this series has been building up to. Though it was a little disappointing that at the beginning of this movie, Statham really, really fucks up Hobbs. And Hobbs gets pretty much taken out of the movie until the final showdown. Somebody always has to get the shit into the stick. And it's Hobbs again. Hobbs is always getting the shit into the stick when it comes to the big action scenes. Remember the tank scene in the 6th one?
Mm-hmm.
When everything happened and then Hobbs like showed up in his helicopter after everything passed.
He's showing up at the end. There's a reason for him to be there.
Yes, but then he showed up at the end and they did the tag team thing, and so everything was great. Yes. It's pretty much the same setup here. Hobbs is pretty much, that's just what Hobbs does now. He just waits it out for a little bit and then he comes in at the last minute to beat everybody's ass.
Do you think he'll come back?
Huh?
Do you think he'll come back for another one?
I would say so. I think everybody's still in, you know, everybody who is still intact at the end of this movie. Because I had assumed that this was like, they were building up for a big ending. Like I guess they were gonna go for a while, but then when the Paul Walker thing happened, there was question of, are they just gonna take Brian out, or are they just gonna end it here entirely? And I was under the impression they were building up to just ending it entirely. But apparently Vin Diesel says no. So, I guess we'll see where this goes.
As long as there's a market for it, they'll continue.
And I must say, there was a great moment in the theater where Hobbs does get moments. Hobbs certainly does have moments, even if he's not in the movie as much as I would like him to be.
Oh, yeah.
There's one particular moment where he's getting ready. Obviously, he's showing up for everything. The fucking trailers. I went back and watched them before I did this review. Yeah, I made sure that if I feel like I'm spoiling something, it's in the goddamn trailer. When Hobbs comes back, and everything's going down, and I think it's Michelle Rodriguez that sees him, and she says, "So did you bring the cavalry with you?" And he picks up a gun and says, "Woman, I am the cavalry." And in the back of the theater, this woman howled.
Serious marketing.
And everybody laughed after that, so it was all good. It was all in good fun. Now, and another thing that kind of disappointed me a little bit was, there were a couple of things before I go into the awesome stuff. For starters, this is just kind of this is what I expected, this is what I got thing. It's not really a criticism or anything, but, the one thing I was building up when I heard that Statham had been cast was, holy fucking shit, we're gonna see Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson versus Jason Statham. Like the tag team match we saw in the 6th movie on the plane.
It makes perfect sense.
They both get big-ass fights with him, but separately.
Why?
So we still get it, but not quite in the fashion I had imagined, but still, you can't win everything. So there's that. Another thing is how they handled Lucas Black. I was really ecstatic when I saw him on the cast list for this one. Because I was like, oh my god, fucking everybody's going to come in and do this. Pretty much the only reason Lucas Black is here is, you'll notice at the end when he, at the end of the last one when he crashed Han's car and then he threw the cross down at him and he called Dom and all that. We see the footage from Tokyo Drift where Bow Wow says, this guy wants to see you, he knew Han. And then we cut to them, and it's the footage from now, and it's after their race has taken place, and, he's saying, like, man, Han said you were fast, but I didn't realize you were that fast. Oh, by the way, they found this on Han's body. It's a cross. I'm Lucas Black. Peace out. And we never see him again.
I really wish that was his exact dialogue in those words, too.
In that southern accent he has, too.
Oh, God. Brilliance.
I was a little worried there about them using actual Tokyo Drift footage. So I was like, man, I wonder how much... I haven't seen him for a while. I wonder how much Lucas Black has aged in 9 years and if it's going to be obvious. Not really. He just has like a 5 o'clock shadow that he didn't have in Tokyo Drift suddenly. Other than that, it's fine.
I didn't shave for a couple days.
I know the character of Sean wasn't he was just a racer. He wasn't really into the action plots or anything. But still, I thought he was going to do something. But he's just kind of here to say, hey, we're connecting Tokyo Drift. This was found on Han's body. Bye. Friday Night Lights 2, yo.
So this is it's like what's being done with the X-Men franchise now, connecting everything together.
Yeah, kind of. This one's a lot more coherent about it, though.
Good.
There's still a lot of shit that's missing from the X-Men timeline. But
for now. In time.
Singer wants to do one storyline, people want to do another storyline, Fox and everything, and nobody knows what's going on. Matthew Vaughn's got his own thing going on.
Trying to kill everybody else's versions.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess we can talk about some Paul Walker stuff now. Okay. There's a few things to talk about. For starters, let me guess. I don't think this is a spoiler because I'm sure it's... Once again, this review's a day late too, so pretty much everything's already been said. So I'm going to assume everybody knows pretty... I'm not going to spoil, spoil, but I assume people are knowledgeable of shit that is in this movie.
I would say so
by now. Okay. One thing that really surprised me was I was under the impression, heavily, that what was going to happen was they kept talking about they were going to make a tagline where the big question was how they were going to handle Brian not being in this movie now. So they were going to do the Brandon Lee said they were going to use some CGI and doubles and stuff like that. His brothers were used, apparently. But the question was what was going to happen. Because apparently the big thing was, let's have Statham kill him and up the ante and the vengeance factor. But I guess James Wan and the studio...
I believe that would have happened if he would still be alive. Almost guaranteed that. I honestly think if he still would be alive today, I think they probably would have done that.
I'm going to take a detour real quick, and I'm going to tell you what I thought was going to happen, and then I'll tell you not what actually happens, but
I'm curious
how they handle what's going on with Brian here. It was to my under the impression, I was under the impression he was going to be in about 2/3 of the movie, and then there was stuff that they hadn't shot.
Yeah.
And Brian was just going to, because they said something about they were going to make him retire, and that's how they were going to do it. So it was to my I was under the impression, not having seen anything, I was just taking a wild stab in the dark here. I was under the impression that they were going to have him kill Jordana Brewster. Yeah. And then they can say, you know, Brian, you got to take care of the kid, and you got to get out of this because you can't get killed now, or otherwise your kid's going to be an orphan.
That makes a lot of sense. And
because she's the sister, Dom is in full vengeance mode. That's where I thought the movie was going to go.
That's a great idea.
None of that happens, by the way.
Of course it doesn't, because it's too great of an idea. What, WWE writers writing this movie?
So, the thing that I was totally wrong about is Paul Walker is in the movie from beginning to end. I did not realize he had shot that much, but he's in the whole movie. That's weird. The whole thing. And it's the one scene, apparently the one scene, I remember reading about this once the scene was, they were saying, like, they're building up to it, I remember them saying this now, they were about to go shoot the big sequence in Abu Dhabi when he died, I think. And when you watch that scene, you can't help but kind of look for it. Because you'll notice once they get to Abu Dhabi, there are shots of Brian, but he doesn't really have any lines, and he's just kind of there. And then when they get to the moment where they have to go into the big building and get the car and all that, there's a moment, I could be wrong here, this could have just been me being weird in my senses, but when they talked about his, because I didn't think about this till afterwards, but while I was watching the movie, there was a scene where Brian is circling the car and he's talking about it, and he's like, you know, saying facts about it and how he wants to punch the guy in the face and stuff like that. That shot of him is kind of from a distance, and the voice didn't really, it sounded like him, but also not really. I'm thinking maybe that could have been one of, like, his brothers or something. Because I had forgotten that until not that long ago.
They didn't have a bunch of dialogue from all the other movies they could have ADR looped into it to create.
That's what I thought, like what they did with Chef.
Yes.
In South Park.
Exactly.
Yeah, I am not sure what was him and what wasn't for sure, but which is a huge prop to the effects department, by the way.
Oh, why?
And James Wan himself, of course. So yeah, there was all that, and if you're wondering about, you know, some stuff like, yeah, it's a lot of people were weirded out when Brick Mansions came out, and there were a lot of scenes of Paul Walker in speeding cars, but there are a couple of scenes here where you really, really try to get past it. You really try not to think about it and just, you know, watch the movie for what it is. But some scenes kind of, like, there's one in particular, maybe I'm overthinking this one in particular, but Brian's introduction scene is him dropping his kid off at school. And it's a nice, happy scene and all that. And then the next scene right after that is Letty in the cemetery, and she's like looking at her own grave and stuff like that, and reminiscing and trying to find her memories again. I found it a little weird, maybe it's just me, where the first scene with Brian in it is followed by a scene in a cemetery. That might just be me overthinking. However, the second scene, which I'm sure, I didn't really hear too much in the crowd I was in, but I'm sure people get a little uneasy. The scene, they have Han's funeral, obviously, which is a really nice scene because, you know, we got to know and love Han in Tokyo Drift, which was like 4 movies ago, and then, you know, everything happened, and now we circle back around. It's like you're finally seeing an old friend be put to rest because it's 4 movies later, and you're finally seeing Han get a funeral. And Ludacris has some lines in this scene that are going to make people really uncomfortable. Because, obviously, you know, there was the whole Letty situation, and now it's Han. And Gal Gadot's character, I think, bit it in the 6th one as well, I think. But what the point is they're all standing here at Han's funeral, and Ludacris is standing right next to Brian. And he just keeps saying, I can't do funerals anymore. And he basically says right up front, Brian, please tell me there's no more funerals. And that I mean, it's building up to a cool payoff because it's Jason Statham is driving by and watching them. And the payoff line is, there is just going to be one more funeral. His. But, yeah, before...
That's still a little close to home.
Yeah, I was going to say, I kind of knew where they were going with it's going to be Statham's funeral next.
Yeah.
But the fact that Brian responded and said, "There's gonna be one more." That's a little...
That's chilling.
I mean, they couldn't get past it, obviously,
No.
but still, you can't help but think about it. That's the issue. Which is nobody's fault. I'm just pointing this out.
Yeah.
And it's not even a fault of the movie. I'm just saying. All right, now, there are some really fantastic action scenes in this movie. I feel like I'm kind of being a little redundant here because you probably saw them in the trailer. But the scene that just really, really kicked serious ass in this. Actually, before I mention this, I should probably point out that when I was talking about the fact that you can't necessarily... You most likely got the idea that they couldn't make an entire 2-hour and 20-minute movie about Jason Statham hunting them. So there's another plot going on. And that is that Kurt Russell comes in and his crew are looking for Jaimin Hanzo, who is this big, like, terrorist of sorts. And in the event... And Jaimin's character may or may not be connected to Statham's character. So Kurt Russell comes in and says, like, hey, you and your team come in and help me take out Jaimin. You might just be able to get Statham involved in this too. And I know that's what you're looking for, so I'm just going to lay that offer on the table. And that leads to this big-ass action scene where they have to get onto this road that they cannot just drive onto. So they have to... It's one of the most insane action scenes I've seen for a long-ass time. And that tank scene in the 6th one was going to be hard to top. And they pulled it off. Because they have to back their cars out of a plane that is in midair and parachute them down just right onto the road. And then they have to go onto a bus, which is armed with machine guns on all sides. And they have to get on there and retrieve somebody. And they have to get... There are so many different things going on here, and just as this pursuit is happening, fucking Statham drives in, and they have to chase him, too. So Dom goes one way, and Brian has launched himself onto the bus, and gets into a hand-to-hand combat fight with Tony Jaa. While Vin Diesel is chasing Jason Statham through the woods, and this is all happening at the same time.
Oh my god.
And then finally, when this big-ass scene comes to a head, it's the whole thing where Brian is still on the bus and Tony Jaa has jumped off of it, and Brian has to manage to get out of the bus and off of it before it flies off a cliff. And then, before the scene's even over, we're introduced to Jaimin, and Dom has to drive off a cliff himself to get away from him. All of that is one big centerpiece scene. Like, every character, and this is what I'm talking about, every single fucking character in the movie is involved in this giant big-ass scene, except for fucking Hobbs, who's in the goddamn hospital. Hobbs always misses out. And I think Dwayne Johnson would be so awesome in these scenes too, but still... I digress about Dwayne Johnson. I just really wish he'd been in the movie more.
We'll put him over, hopefully, when San Andreas comes out.
Yeah. And it's insane with, just, when you think back to the other ones, and you think how it was just street racing.
Yeah.
That's all it fucking was. You had Johnny Tran in there who would, was doing his little thing, his little rich boy criminal routine. Which, by the way, I do think, even though we're really, really building, like, it's like, oh, these are kind of nothing villains. And then John Ortiz came in and it's like, oh, he wasn't bad. And then suddenly we have Luke Evans and it's like, man, this guy's a real fucking villain. And then finally they throw Statham at us and it's like, well, shit's gonna go down now. That being said, I always thought Johnny Tran was an underrated villain. Mm-hmm. I thought he was pretty cool. Because he did the whole rich boy thing, but at the same time, he'd like totally fuck your ass up if you got in his way. So, but yeah, they're reaching... It's insane how much they're just really, really going out. And when you listen to them in interviews, they're all saying the same thing about how, you know what, we know how ridiculous it is, so we're just trying to just go even farther. Just be as ridiculous as possible. Because, yeah, I thought they would have died in that factor is monumental in this, as if you thought it wasn't enough in the 6th one. Where There's a moment where I could have sworn Hobbs was dead. There's a moment I could have sworn Statham was dead. There's a moment where pretty much any of them could have died. And they just, like, get out and crack their neck and move on. There is a great scene towards the beginning where I was reminded of Last Action Hero. Because I was like, I wonder how this is going to go down, because we know how Last Action Hero already critiqued this. Where Vin Diesel and Jason Statham play chicken. And it doesn't go as planned. And they both just fucking walk away from it. It's like, wow, those people are dead. Those people will never see the light of day ever again. The only way they are getting out of those cars is in body bags. Oh my god, they're walking out their damn doors. But yes, there's a serious moment where Hobbs stops a drone with an ambulance. And I was like, holy shit, I think they just killed off Hobbs. It's like, oh wait, never mind, I forgot what series I was watching. No, after all that, imagine how pissed I would have been if they fucking killed off Hobbs after all this. Yeah, I'm in the game now. That would have been horrible.
He's a part of the attraction Universal. You can't do anything with his character now. He has to be in the movies.
Yeah. So needless to say, this movie definitely lives up. And like I said, if you haven't seen the trailers, it's a whole other experience. Like, I knew that when I saw the 6th, and I was like, man, if I hadn't seen the trailer, this would be so awesome. So, all of this has led up to this, and it totally paid off. This 2 years of not watching trailers has paid off. And I am going to continue to do it, because I know a lot of other movies are culprits as well.
Yeah.
Because when I went back and watched the trailers, I couldn't believe my eyes, because that whole scene I was talking about, from when they go to the plane to the bus hanging off the cliff, that whole scene from beginning to end is condensed in the trailer. Like, the entire first half of the trailer is that scene from beginning to end. And I was, really? People saw this scene 5 months ago? I saw it today and it blew my mind, and I'd never seen anything like it before. It's wonderful. It's fantastic. And yes, as far as a tribute goes, there is, they do the big build up to Brian, and where he's pretty much, he and Mia are gonna start the family and stuff like that, and because, I always thought Mia was kind of a pointless character. Like, the only reason Mia exists is to be the connection as to why Brian and Dom are as close as they are. Like, they're already kind of close, like, ever since the very first movie when he saved Dom from being arrested. From that moment on, but yeah, Mia has kind of been that main connection where it's like, hey man, you're nice to my sister, and you married her, and she's having your babies and shit, so we're family now, and that's cool by me. Not lines Vin Diesel said, but it's the way he would have delivered them.
Yes.
No, Vin Diesel's fantastic, and I love the way he's, in his element. No, Vin Diesel is an underrated talent. If you watch Find Me Guilty and Boiler Room and stuff like that, and he's so enthusiastic. Like, all the franchises he's in, like, he's talking about doing another Triple X. As much as I hate them, he's really, really passionate about the Riddick movies, and I respect him for that. He's just a guy that really, really loves doing these, and you can tell, like, with that, producer position, that he's the one that really, really pushes to keep these going. And that's great, and you can tell that passion and everything behind the scenes, the closeness with everybody. And that really, really comes to a head with this ending where we see, this isn't spoiler either, but even though I say, in the ending, this happens. As far as a Paul Walker tribute, it's a lot of they're really, really building up the family thing, and then we see all the clips from the series all the way up. And I won't say what it is, but the last shot of this movie is so perfect. And honestly, when you saw The Fast and the Furious in 2001, I guarantee nobody ever would have suspected they would get as emotional as they probably will with this. I mean, the whole thing with the clips and everything is one thing, but the last shot of the movie is like, it really hits. So, yeah, this was a success. I'm not sure, like, yeah, I would say it's the best of the series. Though, the thing is I don't really see eye to eye with people, I guess, on the rest of the series. I learned the hard way recently. Everybody loves Fast 5. I think Fast 5's alright. Mm-hmm. Before this one, my favorite was always the first one. I think the first one's insanely awesome. And it was my favorite, really, by far. And yeah, I like Tokyo Drift. I like Tokyo Drift a lot. And I'm not ashamed to say it. And if you want to fight me, I will gladly fight you over that. Verbally, but I will fight you over it. But yeah, this one is probably the best one, and it'll be interesting to see how rewatches hold up. We're just going to go 3 stars right now, because, you know...
Okay.
Yeah. So, but maybe, you know, rewatches, maybe it'll get better, maybe it'll just be, yeah, this is good. I don't know. But yeah, well, 3 stars seems appropriate too, man.
Sounds good. Next week, I don't even want to think about it.
It comes out by itself.
I know it does. That makes it even worse. Let's hope It Follows comes out somehow.
Yeah.
So, that's next week. Another crappy Nick Sparks movie that doesn't need to be made. The week after, we've got 4 movies, which we're going to play the guessing game of which ones we're not going to get. That should be fun. So, we got that coming up. Tomorrow, Brandy versus Cryptic Comment is going to be Fairy Tale. That's pretty much the only thing I can get away with at this point, just calling it Fairy Tale. So, that being said, seemed like you enjoyed your experience.
Yeah.
How was the theatrical experience?
You mean the crowd?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was, I don't know why people are bringing their kids to this, but like they're real little kids, but you know, it's a Saturday in the early afternoon, I'm sure they did have anything else.
How's the emotions of the theater?
There was reaction.
Okay.
I think I saw one girl crying. Just one. There were a lot of people in there. I think I saw one girl crying, but there was a lot of like, you know, in all the other movies, you know, you see people pile out and they're like, man, that was fucking awesome. And they're like, yeah, I'm gonna go like, you know, jack up my ride and, you know, rob some people and all that shit. Because I'm awesome. And that movie makes me realize how awesome I am. People are gonna come out of this movie a little melancholy because of the send-off, but in a very, very appropriate way.
Alright.
So, yeah.
Alright, so that being said...
But then, once the melancholy wears off, they'll be saying, holy fucking shit, the plane scene. And then go from there.
Alright, so that was Furious 7, and I'm very curious to see where we go next with the 8th version. Hopefully we're going to proceed. I'm going to guess we're not going to go back in the past. We're going to proceed now.
I think we can go nowhere but forward now.
Okay, good.
Unless you want to go way back to, like, you know, Dawn before he met Brian. They could do that if they wanted to.
Yeah.
But I think we have enough Dawn backstory where we pretty much know what Dawn was doing before he met Brian. So
sounds good.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
So thank you guys and girls out there for watching. Halloween Horror Nights video talking about Dr. Jimmy's April Fool's Day video is currently up today. This video will be up as soon as I possibly can get it up tomorrow. Brandy Versus video coming up, like I said, Fairy Tale is your cryptic comment. And also Halloween Horror Nights video talking about Dr. Jimmy's first 2 cryptic performances coming out tomorrow. Wrestling coming on Monday. Me and Ashley are going to be doing the Raw podcast on Tuesday with NXT and Impact. Wednesday is the vlog of Randomness, Thursday Sip and Snack, and Friday is that aforementioned horrible Nick Sparks movie that we don't want to talk about. Ashley returns on Saturday and a Brandy Versus on Sunday. You're going to have to get the other video to find out what the cryptic comment is on that one. So that being said, thank you guys and girls out there for watching. AJ, any parting words?